we've got ourselves a new course to break down for this week's PGA Tour event. It's at Congaree Golf Club in South Carolina. Going to be a lot of unknowns. I'm not a big fan of having a first-time course just because my process is so data-driven. I like to see what stats matter here at a particular course, who does well, how we can learn from past events. I'm sure I'm not alone in that, but there are ways to take advantage of the unknowns. Usually the simplest thing that I will do at an unknown course is for my FanDuel lineups, just target similar types of golfers and hope that that's the right sort of archetype type of golfer who is going to fare well, and just kind of, hope for the best. Obviously not roster any golfers who are bad, but again, lots of unknowns. So we got lots to break down. We got some rain in the forecast. That's going to change how Congaree plays, but we also have a field that's very top heavy. And then it drops off quite a bit. So welcome on in to the FanDuel PGA Q&A for this week. I'm your host, Brandon Gdula. I'm the managing editor over at numberFire.com. I'll be talking about the field, the betting odds on FanDuel Sportsbook, the daily fantasy slate on FanDuel, my win simulations, and whatever else you want, because this is a Q&A format. So just hit up the comment section on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or Twitch if you have questions for this week's event, the Palmetto Championship at Congaree Golf Club. So I'm going to start, as I always do, just looking at the field, give everyone a sort of a lay of the land, if you will, here. But we have Brooks Koepka and Dustin Johnson as co-favorites at 8-1 on FanDuel Sportsbook. Then Tyrrell Hatton, 14-1, Matt Fitzpatrick, 16-1, Sungjae Im, 20, Tommy Fleetwood, 22. And then I lump in Harris English to some degree in the top 7 for this week, but after Harris English and possibly after Tommy Fleetwood. And if you really are, I know a lot of people love Tommy Fleetwood. I see a case for him this week, but if you really want, you could say it's a top 5. Then you look at more specifically at Brooks Koepka and DJ. We got the US Open coming up. DJ is not quite himself. He might be playing just because it's in his home state. Brooks has a lot going on off the course. So I don't know what his engagement level is going to be either. So it's going to be a wild week, probably an unpredictable week too, especially if this course does play easy, which it could. And that's kind of where things get tricky. So I'm not going to go through anyone else in the field because nobody else is necessarily noteworthy in terms of who's headlining the field. But jumping over just to the scorecard quickly, I'm not going to go through this hole by hole. Actually, I'll show you a snapshot here that I pulled. I have a database of hole by hole yardages on the PGA Tour, and I wanted to see just how each hole here at Congaree fares relative to the median distance of, say, a par 4. So measuring par 4s to par 4s, par 5s to par 5s, things like that. You can see here at the bottom, only 3 holes are like significantly notably shorter than that, the median yardage for a particular par, but everything else is roughly the same or longer. So it's going to be kind of a tough test, like hole after hole after hole. Specifically, we got this trio of par 4s all ranging over 500 yards. So I think driving distance is going to be a key this week at Congaree Golf Club in again, South Carolina. It's a Tom Fazio design. It's a recent design in 2017. I believe the actual course itself opened in 2018, but either way, it's still really new. Not a whole lot of golfers are going to have played it, have a lot of knowledge. The only thing I could really find in there, I could be missing some stuff here, but I know some golfers have filtered in, but some of the names that I saw weren't actually even in the field. But Lucas Glover is an ambassador for Congaree. Lucas Glover is a good play, I think, on FanDuel at 9,900. I think he's a good bet at 40-1 on FanDuel Sportsbook because he's, yes, an ambassador here, but has good recent data as well. So, we're filling in here kind of on short notice for the RBC Canadian Open, just due to travel logistics. Like I'm kind of scrambling here to dig into too much because it is difficult. We don't even have a stimp meter reading yet, so we don't know how fast these Bermuda greens are going to play. Some other recent Tom Fazio designs on the PGA Tour. We have the Corrales Punta Cana, so not that reliable there for that field that was there in shot link situation. PGA National for the Honda Classic, Shadow Creek for the CJ Cup. I'm not really sure. There's a lot of overlap between those courses and this, so keep that in mind. But just kind of going back to that length, it's 7,655 yards, playing as a par 71, so it's about 350 to 400 yards longer than the average par 71 on tour. So again, I think it's going to be pretty relentless. Lucas Glover, I did read what I could find. He did say that some guys are probably going to overpower it and be able to cut some corners, but that you can also be accurate and kind of plod your way around. So I'm still leaning more toward longer hitters based on the sheer yardage hole after hole at Congaree. So that's kind of where I'm starting. My key stats for this week is going to start with strokes gained approach as always, driving distance, Bermuda putting, or just putting in general if you don't have Bermuda splits, and birdie or better rate. Birdie or better rate, I think this is going to play a little bit easier. It's been raining this week. It's going to rain more, so it could play softer. That generally means that distance is a bit more important, and it's a little more scoreable. We'll probably be able to hold these greens, which are on average just over 6,000 square feet, which is actually a little bit bigger than the average PGA Tour average green size. Question from DJ. This is only golf questions, not for MLB, correct? For now, yes. You don't want me answering your MLB questions, but stay tuned. At around just before 4 o'clock, Tom Vecchio will be on to answer all your MLB questions for tonight's slate. So I think for me, I kind of covered what I can for Congaree. I guess I can mention that it's supposed to play firm and fast, but with the rain, it might not. So what we really have is kind of that distance angle, lots of sand. But for me, distance, approach, and putting going to be my key stats for the week. I can't show anything like course fit or event history because we don't have any. So I'll jump over to my spreadsheet and look at the top 5 golfers on FanDuel in terms of their salary. We have Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka, both over $12,000 with their salary on FanDuel. DJ rates out as the favorite in my win simulation model, which is based on long-term adjusted form. It's adjusted for the fields you play in. It's adjusted for recency as well, which gives more weight to recent rounds, less weight to rounds that came last summer, for example. Even with that, and I don't really do this a lot because I think it's kind of hard to do reliably, I bumped DJ down even more because I don't know what the recent form is really telling us. Maybe there's something more going on with DJ with this sandwich between, well, I guess just right before the U.S. Open, playing in his home state. I don't know what his engagement level is going to be. So I bumped him down. Even with that, he's rating out as my model's favorite at 9.6%, followed by Tyrrell Hatton, Matt Fitzpatrick, and then Brooks Koepka's fourth at 6.2%. So Brooks always has he's always hard to build into a model because he's been hurt and he plays in tough fields, which I do adjust for. But he also is more engaged in majors. He kind of comes out of nowhere in majors, as we see virtually every major he's in. So Brooks is always going to rate out a little bit lower because I don't make those manual adjustments, but still pretty strong overall. And then Sungjae Im, the fifth man here, definitely not bad, but if you want to look at a single number here that worries me about Sungjae relative to the other golfers, with his salaries being so close, it's this approach number. Sungjae, 65th percentile in adjusted approach over the past year, which also is weighted for field strength and recency. So Sungjae, from that perspective, not drawing a whole lot of attention for me. Question from Facebook from Steven. Who's your favorite golfer? Well, my favorite golfer is Xander Schauffele, but he's not in the field this week. My favorite golfer for this week is Tyrrell Hatton on FanDuel at 11,800. I don't have a whole lot of question marks about Tyrrell Hatton, especially if this does play firm and fast. That kind of maybe unreliably puts us on more European players rather than Americans. But with that, we don't have to worry so much about like you can look at DJ and really worry. You can convince yourself to worry to some degree. You can do the same for Brooks, whether Brooks is really engaged or if he's more worried about giving out some beers and what he can get out of the crowd. It's just kind of something that you have to factor in. I try to be as objective as possible, but for Brooks, anytime in a non-major, I think it's fair to wonder. So for me, it's going to be Tyrrell Hatton. Not super long, which is a problem, but he's also not short. And there's a difference between being long and being short and being somewhere in between. He's not going to be at a huge disadvantage based on his driving distance. 57th percentile here over the past 100 rounds, according to FantasyNational.com. Matt Fitzpatrick, the one outlier here in terms of driving distance. So for me, my favorite play overall, my favorite bet right now is Tyrrell Hatton. But I also would include probably, as a FanDuel play and as a bet, I mentioned him already, but Lucas Glover, so he's 45-1. I thought he was 40-1. It's even better for us. 2% likely to win, which is small, but the top 12 golfers make up over half of the wins in my model this week. So Glover, I like him. Again, he's a course ambassador, which is going to be just kind of a rare opportunity for us this week. But these stats here, all really good. Tee to green, 95th percentile over the past year. 92nd percentile off the tee, 89th in approach, 87th around the green. The putting overall and on Bermuda can be problematic, but still long enough, above field average. I'm really looking for red flag golfers who would be in the 25th percentile or below over the past 100 rounds, who I'm trying to avoid more actively. So I don't really see that with Glover. So Glover's kind of a runner up for my second favorite golfer relative to salary and his win odds. A comment from Scott Stewie Stewart: love Hatton. I mean, it's easy to love Hatton. I don't know if Joe Hatton loves himself sometimes. He's really hard on himself. So, but we've seen Tyrrell Hatton be almost unfadable a year ago, and then the layoff hit. But he's rounding back into form. I like him just from an overall standpoint. There's just not a whole lot to worry about with a golfer as good as Tyrrell Hatton, who is, as my simulations show, the second best golfer in this field adjusted for field strength over the past year, trailing only DJ, who again you can really say there are some question marks around for this week. So I'm going to jump over to my overall spreadsheet here, get rid of those guys. And I already talked about most of the golfers in the 11,000 range, but I do think that DJ, Brooks, Hatton, Fitzpatrick, Sungjae Im, Tommy Fleetwood, Harris English, all super viable for this week at their salaries of 11,300. We do have some options in the low 8,000 range and the upper 7,000 range, which is usually kind of rare, but with a field this week, it's a lot easier to talk yourself into those guys if it gets you, a second, superstar relative to this field. So I'll break down the 10,000 and I guess really 9.6 to 10.6 range here. I won't pull up everyone in the Finder, mostly because I don't really like a lot of these golfers. That's what you can see. I just have some. Not everyone who's highlighted I love, and not everyone who's unhighlighted I don't love. But Lucas Glover here, I already talked about. Harold Varner, Jonathan Vegas, kind of my favorites, and they're all at the bottom end of this tier. The 10,000 range not drawing a whole lot of my attention. For the most part, not a whole lot of great approach play, which is always the number one stat. It's not the most predictive or the predictable. Off the tee is slightly more predictable, but you can gain significantly more strokes with approach play than you can with the driver each and every week. So that's why approach play is always taking precedent pretty much no matter what. So we got some question marks there. And you'll probably see some talk about Garrick Higgo at 10,200. Higgo, the PGA Tour sample is really small, but I'll actually pull up this query tool from Data Golf and look at this field over the past, hopefully this loads. Let's do the past 20 rounds. I did this on the podcast earlier, but he's third in this field in their version of adjusted strokes gained over the past 20 rounds. but the way he's doing it is with the putter, right? And you can gain a lot of strokes putting, virtually as many or more than you can with your irons, but you know, 10,200 is a pretty steep salary to pay for a golfer who's just barely above like world average on during his hot streak. Tee to green, you can bank on tee to green play more than you can on putting. So for me, I'm kind of out on Higo, but you know, Poulter's in that salary range. He's golfing really well. Kind of similar though, really raising himself up with the putter. That is hard to get behind. I think Snedeker is in that salary range. I never play Brand Snedeker because what he does well is has a really great short game, and that's not super bankable, especially at a course that's really long. You know, I could be way off base here, and the real secret could be just hit the fairway, and it's going to play super tough, so you need a great short game. If that's the case, then I'll just have a really bad week. But with the distance hole by hole being what it is, I do think the distance is not a full-on must, but it is kind of a prerequisite to some degree. So that's the angle I'm playing with, and I think without a whole lot of knowledge outside of that, we got to take a stand at some point. So that's kind of where I am with this range. Yeah, Snedeker's right there at 10K. Again, I don't play him. He's actually a subpar golfer relative to the a world average was what my adjusted strokes gain number is really showing. So for me, I don't have a lot of interest in this 10,000 range. So I'm looking more at that 9,000 range. But just below that, we do have a pretty solid range overall. Lots of names here between 87 and 95. Scott Stallings, Luke List. Luke List cannot putt, but he's very, very good tee to green. 99th percentile off the tee, 82nd approach, 77th around the green, and 4th with the putter. He's 3rd on Bermuda, 4th on Bermuda now that because we've had like 1,000 withdrawals. So I'm in on Luke List. I'm in on Martin Laird, Sepp Straka, Bo Hoag to some degree. Sepp Straka's irons are really bad, so it's kind of one of those golfers who I had highlighted and just didn't really remove. But Bo Hoag, I think, makes a lot of sense just from a salary standpoint. He's good off the tee, pretty good tee to green, and really no red flags in any of the adjusted strokes gain numbers. It's not a birdie maker, which is a little bit of a concern. Question from Scott. Thoughts on Pack? John Pack. So I don't even know if he's going to be on here. He is. I actually did look into him. We don't have the more granular strokes gain data on him. I wouldn't want to look at a 20-round sample anyway, but he is above that field average. So where does he actually rank over the past 20 rounds? Well, I can look at actual ranks, but I was more curious to see the names around him at a plus 0.12. Boy, this field drops off so quickly. So we have Keith Mitchell, Camilo Villegas, Adam Schenk. So yeah, I mean, surprisingly Sungjae, and this is also just kind of a fair warning not to look at a 20-round sample. So I'll actually expand this a bit. I don't know how much data we'll have on John Pak to begin with. So, okay. So we do have some more granular data here. What's he got? 4. Okay, so just 4 shot length rounds, so you can't really look at these numbers here too much. But over a 50-round sample, which they do have on Data Golf, he's a negative 3.9. So let's compare that here and see. Austin Cook, Kevin Chappell, Keith Mitchell. So Keith Mitchell is like 10-3 or something. I'm not going to chase that. Tyler McCumber, yeah. So for me, I can buy into a smaller sample with younger guys. That's what the data says to do. I'm not quite there. I don't think I have to be. I think we do have enough other more proven options. So I'm not going to talk anyone out of playing him, especially if you do like that more recent data. But for me, I'm going to let the longer sample do the talking and just kind of play it safer for this week. So this salary range is pretty good. And we actually have a few more names down here I did like at least to mention, because I don't typically roster any golfers below like 8,500. I don't think you have to. It fields drop off pretty substantially, but James Hahn, John Huh, and Roger Sloan rating out well enough for me to like as punt plays, which I shouldn't really say because they're some of the best golfers in the world. But for me, it's enough. If it's getting me, I have some questions about DJ, but I'm gonna play DJ and Brooks in tournament lineup. So if John Huh, Roger Sloan, James Hahn, who else down here? I can always be talking to Bronson Burgoon because I'm the founding member, I think, of the Burgoon Pontoon. But David Lipsky, I think, would make some sense. Byung-Hoon An, always, well, not always, I shouldn't say, but really good tee to green at his best. So that's, at least we have that going for us. But we do have options here in the lower salary range, which we typically don't. So that is kind of how I'm viewing the field. Roster construction wise, I do want 2 to 3 of those stars. That can probably go from like 97 and above, so I can include Lucas Glover in there, but I'm more okay at the lower end of the salary pool this week than I typically am, just because the field strength is so weak. To finish up here, I will show my win simulation model more directly here, compare it to the betting odds on FanDuel Sportsbook. Again, DJ's rating out as the favorite for me, 9.6% likely to win. That's not enough to recommend betting him. I'm not going to bet him myself. Brooks, again, I talked about this earlier, but Brooks is really, really hard to build into a betting model because he picks his weeks where he's engaged, and it's hard to know when that's going to be. So he rates out as a pretty terrible betting value for me this week. So I'm more inclined to look at Tyrrell Hatton and Matt Fitzpatrick on the high end. Both rating out as positive expected values because DJ and Brooks are soaking up so much at the top. So if Hatton, Fitzpatrick, Harris English as well, I could be talking to Tommy Fleetwood. Let me just pull him up quickly. I'm not as big on Fleetwood as most people are because I just like the data for every golfer, and it's not bad, but like his ball striking is not what I feel like people kind of built him up to me when I first learned of Tommy Fleetwood all these years ago, is that he was a great, like a great ball striker and a pin seeker. And some of the recent data shows good short game, can make birdies. So I'm not out on Tommy Fleetwood. I was assuming he'd be more in like that 28 to 33 number to bet, but at 22 to 1, I think that's a little. It's just not what I anticipated, so a little higher than I would like to see, but I would not talk anyone out of Tommy Fleetwood specifically, especially with all those question marks at the very, very top end of the field. What else do we have here? Kevin Kisner, I don't like I don't change this stuff to agree with what I presume is going to happen, but Kevin Kisner, not necessarily long enough for me to want to bet. Maybe that's a dumb decision. Maybe I should just assume I don't know everything. But I would rather bet Lucas Glover at the same number pretty substantially, even though the win simulation model does prefer Kisner just by a hair. Comment from Cabo 17. Sorry, I mixed up the one and the L there. But love me some Tommy Fleetwood. Fleetwood Mac, yes. Everyone loves Tommy Fleetwood. I think I love Xander, and I think people love Fleetwood in the same way. So it's always hard because I feel like I'm lower on consensus than Fleetwood, but I think it's probably a vocal, maybe a vocal minority on Fleetwood. But I like Fleetwood, and again, relative to this field, I wouldn't be surprised if he wins, especially if it does kind of play, just kind of hit fairways and then use your short game to get out of trouble. So Fleetwood is definitely on the radar for me. I would consider betting him still at 22 to 1, even though the model was not quite there. Again, I just assumed he would have opened closer to 28 or 33 for this week. But you kind of see, because the model doesn't agree with Brooks being where he is, with DJ as well, you see some extra value here on the lower end. Scott Stallings at 85 to 1. Eric Van Rooyen cannot putt, but is very, very good tee to green. So I think he makes sense there. James Hahn, I mentioned him as a DFS play, but he's kind of popping in the model as well. Sepp Straka, I'm not there just because the irons have been bad, and it's kind of hypocritical because I talk about not buying into a small sample for golfers because it's not that predictive, but it is always hard to talk yourself out or talk yourself into a golfer who's not showing a whole lot at the moment. I'm actually curious to see who now, because we've had so many withdrawals, who are the best betting values. Harris English, my model always loves Harris English because he's very good, very underrated. Doesn't get as much love in the betting market as he probably should. Tyrrell Hatton, Fitzpatrick, Hahn, Kisner. This makes sense to me. I feel best with Tyrrell Hatton and Lucas Glover from a betting standpoint for this week. Scott Stallings, I liked Danny Willett, but he withdrew. Martin Laird, I like as well. He's not showing up as a great value, but Martin Laird definitely on my list. So I think that kind of sums it up for this week. Is we don't know what to expect at a new course. We have a lot of different ways we can go. I think it's going to be driving distance based. I could be wrong, but that's what I can tell. What the numbers are saying to me. So I'm going to factor in distance quite heavily for this week. And as far as lineup construction goes, I do think getting 2 of 7, if not 3 of those top 7 into your lineups makes a lot of sense. So that's all I have for this week. I'm going to bring in Tom Vecchio, doing our nice transition. Usually I throw at the gym and I ask how his thoughts have changed since this morning whenever we did the PGA show, but I don't have that this week. I have Tom to talk to about MLB, which he knows I love baseball. So I have a lot of takes for this night, but give me like a 1-sentence overview for this MLB slate. How can I catch up right away? I think you're muted. I think your mic's off.
Am I good now?
I hear you now, yes.
All right. The sentence overview would be that there are 4 or 5 elite pitchers on tonight's slate, but we're also dealing with some weather issues. So, a little bit of a wait and see, but, paying up for Shane Bieber or Tyler Glasnow will put you in a good spot, kind of regardless of who else you choose.
Whenever I play MLB, which I do, even though I talk about not liking baseball that much, I love when there's a stud pitcher I can pay up for because it's like more predictable. And then I will play the worst hitters who have like some semblance of platoon splits that I can talk myself into. So sounds like it's going to be a good night for me, so long as I don't get the bad end of the weather variance.
Yeah, we have that time. We have it's a full 15 games. There's no course field. It's not like you're going to be missing out on a ton of run production. You might actually like tonight's MLB slate.
Sounds right up my alley. So I'm gonna head out and I'm gonna be tuned in so I know which stacks I got to be loading up on for tonight.
All right, so let's hop into some MLB talk. Again, the solo shot this morning was good. We have plenty of pitchers again that we want to be focusing in on. Producer Cal is going to be sending me the questions from the chat. We have some confirmed lineups for now. We have some weather updates to get to. Again, this is via Kevin Roth, one of the best, if not the best, when it comes to weather in MLB. Still dealing with a number of weather issues across the slate. The main ones that we really want to be focusing in on. Philly, this is looking good. Good to see that those storms will be cleared. We're very interested in the Phillies hitters tonight. Pittsburgh is looking good. We're very interested in Walker Buehler tonight. Seattle, Detroit, that game, didn't talk about it too much, but certainly looking at some issues there. Houston at Boston. This is or could be a big problem, not only because we have a high-end pitching option with Valdez for the Astros, but we are dealing with the game with the highest over-under on the slate, sitting at 10.0, and the Astros leading the slate with a 5.1 implied run total. The Red Sox are right there at 4.90. So two of the best offenses are on the slate are in the same game that has a lot of weather concern. So this is a game we have to be paying attention to, whether you're paying up for Framber Valdez at $10,000 or you're going to a Houston or Red Sox stack. And then this final game, Toronto and White Sox, that game is looking pretty good. Cleveland, St. Louis, that game also shouldn't be too much of an issue. Interested in Rodon for some strikeout upside, and of course, Shane Bieber in St. Louis. But this game, Milwaukee at Cincinnati, seeing that there's going to be heavy rain clearing, but there's more storms coming, is an issue when we spoke about the Cincinnati Reds as a great stack today. So we are dealing with a lot of moving parts on tonight's slate. Question from Kyle: thoughts on Nola tonight if I'm trying to pay up for some stacks? In talking about Aaron Nola, I think that's, of course, great. We've seen Aaron Nola, struggle in some of these recent starts. I still think that he is a very, very strong pitcher. A couple concerning points for Nola. One, he's not going super deep into games, right? And this is always an issue when it comes to pitchers. We know his strikeout upside is always there. We look to Nola, 26.7% strikeout rate this year. It's always solid. He's got a 3.45 SIERA this year. We know he's a great pitcher. Going deep into games is an issue. Giving up these earned runs is an issue. And facing an Atlanta lineup that is always difficult, always has that home run upside is something that I'm never comfortable with in cash games. I love him as a GPP option, though. Absolutely love him. I think that Aaron Nola is probably a bit too cheap, given the potential ceiling that he has. So the $8,300 salary is certainly very nice. This is a pitcher that over the past few seasons we paid $10,500 for. So Aaron Nola, absolutely a great tournament option. So you want to pay up for some of those stacks. Next question from Jerry. What's my favorite stack on tonight's slate? It's got to be Cincinnati, right? The home run upside that Cincinnati brings is absolutely amazing. This weather is something that I'm not comfortable with. But Cincinnati tonight coming with a 4.54 implied run total, I think is in a really good spot in the context of the slate and the matchup for them going up against Adrian Hauser. Hauser comes in. Where is Hauser? Am I just not seeing him? I'll just bring up his numbers directly because not seeing him on that list. But the splits for the Cincinnati Reds tonight is absolutely awesome. Again, Hauser, not a big strikeout guy, 21.2%, walking way too many hitters at 10.2% this year. Allowing runners on base is obviously never a good thing. And then, of course, looking at some of his peripheral stats, not great. If we flip to Cincinnati, we'll bring up their splits quickly. Cincinnati versus right-handed pitchers. Look at this, WRC+. Plenty of players up at the top. Jesse Winker, of course, leading the way. He had 3 home runs on Sunday. I faced him in my season-long matchup, which obviously wasn't great. Coming with a 214 WRC+, Castellanos, Tyler Naquin, whoever it might be. Do we have Cincinnati's lineup confirmed? That would be Rangers, Orioles, Mariners, Phillies, Dodgers, Tigers, Astros, Sox. So they aren't confirmed as of yet. But regardless of that, we still should be looking to Cincinnati for their power upside. If Tyler Naquin's not able to go, this actually makes the stack a little bit more affordable. I think Winker and, of course, Castellanos are the 2 best options that you should be looking to. I mentioned someone like Eugenio Suarez this morning on the solo shot, looking to his splits. Listen, a 77 WRC plus is not good, combined with a 29.6% strikeout rate versus right-handed pitching. But the 233 ISO is undeniable. This is a boom or bust hitter that you want in your lineups for GPP. So you can take, I would say, somewhat of savings with Suarez, but I'm also going to be looking to, where is he? Jonathan India right here, a 123 WRC plus, a solid 175 ISO. And now Jonathan India is all the way here at 2,400. So paying for multiple options in the Cincinnati Reds lineup is absolutely viable tonight. Again, worried about the rain here with the Milwaukee at Cincinnati game. But we know that Cincinnati, the Great American Small Park, is a fantastic hitter's park. This is where we always see multiple games throughout the year where we have players going for plenty of home runs. I wouldn't hate this as a game stack potential. I know Sonny Gray is pitching for the Reds. He's looked good this year, but he's obviously not impervious to giving up home runs. And we do see the Milwaukee lineup getting a little bit better over the past few days, few weeks, with Yelich returning to form. And of course, still the park factor is not great for Sonny Gray. So we're waiting on weather. If you are starting your cash game lineups, I'm going to say go with Tyler Glasnow at home. Compared to Shane Bieber on the road, Bieber has a negative going against him. That's the fact that he is in St. Louis, means that he has to hit. They are losing the DH. So instead of going 7.2 innings, he could go 6 innings, and they're just going to pull him because getting the pinch hitter in there. Question from Ryan: how many innings do you expect Lament to go tonight against Chicago that can't stop striking out tonight? That's a great question because Lament is $6,500. I think we would all agree that is a very, very reasonable salary. He was injured last year, dealing with some injuries leading up to this year. But this 26.9% strikeout rate this year is undeniable. This is what we've seen from him in years past, combined with the 3.75 SIERA. This, I would say this could be the question of the slate, Ryan. If we get Lamet going 7 innings, and he can reach towards this higher upside of strikeouts that he's been known to show over the past few seasons, 30+% in each of the past 2 years. The strikeout upside for Lamet is absolutely amazing. Now, do we expect him to get to 6 innings, hopefully grab the QS points? Ultimately, we're not, in the grand scheme of things in fantasy, we're not too worried about quality starts, but getting the extra points for a pitcher who's $6,500 can really boost his potential ceiling, especially if he gets those strikeouts. I would say projecting more than 6 innings is probably a bit much. I would say it's probably going to be 5 tonight. If he can keep those strikeouts rolling, keep the pitch count low, I think that's what we'll be seeing from him. But absolutely no more than 5 from him tonight. I would love to see more because we could make a case that he's probably one of the best point per dollar pitchers on the slate, considering he's only $6,500. Pablo Lopez or Chris Bassett from Diffuse? That's a good question. And I'm gonna go with Chris. I'm gonna go with Pablo Lopez tonight at home. It's not like we're that much worried about the Rockies lineup. We know that they are struggling this year, especially with that Trevor Story in the lineup. It's not like we're worried about the Arizona lineup either. We know that they don't have a ton of strikeouts. But if we bring up the teams versus right-handed pitchers, let's look at some of their stats. I think I'm going to lean towards Pablo Lopez. He's been plenty consistent this year. Looking at the strikeout rate versus right-handed pitchers, Colorado 23.2%, but a terrible 69 WRC plus. So they're slightly better than the league average, only striking out 23.2% of the time. But look at this WRC plus, the worst in the league against right-handed pitching. It's not like Arizona's that much better at 83, but Colorado is terrible, and they are without Trevor Story in their lineup. So I think we can be looking at them. We're not going to be getting a whole lot from their offense. I mean, this is terrible. 25th in league with a 33.7% fly ball rate, 33% hard contact rate. We are not getting anything from Colorado. Arizona, where are they? They're 15, so they're around the league average. It's not like they're considerably better than Colorado, but I'll lean towards Pablo Lopez at $9,600. Also, where we see him on this, Bassett is at 26.5%, Pablo Lopez at 25%. I mean, we're splitting hairs here. I'll take the weaker offense slightly, attacking with Pablo Lopez. Question from Jerry. How am I feeling about a Dodgers stack tonight? Okay, the Dodgers aren't a team that I think a lot of people are going to be on tonight. I think I mentioned this the other day on Friday. They were on the road on Friday in Atlanta, and they put up like, was it 9, 10 runs, whatever it was. They're at 4.89 implied run total tonight. I'll say this about the Dodgers. It is a somewhat of a wait and see for a Dodger stack. I like them tonight. I don't love them. Now, this could change depending on what happens with the Astros and the Red Sox game, because if that game gets postponed, right, if the Astros and Red Sox gets postponed, we immediately see the Dodgers jump up in priority, right, where we're looking at the Dodgers in, I'm going to say, slightly pitcher's park to great pitcher's park in Pittsburgh. Why would we be paying the salaries for the Dodgers when we could shift those salaries equally to the Red Sox or the Astros, who are in similar spots in a significantly better hitter's park? Now, if the Astros Red Sox game is postponed, the Dodgers become more popular, and that means I like them less. If this game goes on, I actually like the Dodgers more because they shouldn't be as popular. So a bit of a roundabout way in saying I like the Dodgers tonight, but if they're going to become more popular, that's where I'm actually going to be shying away from them, just because, if they're going to be chalky, like I don't always like going to chalky stacks in baseball. It's just not one of the things I like doing. I like shooting for as much tournament upside as we possibly can get, and that generally means finding teams that are a bit under the radar. So let's just take a look to see if any more teams were confirmed. The White Sox were confirmed. Pretty standard lineup from them. They are going up against Robbie Ray, who's been solid this year. He's got a 29% strikeout rate. We've always known this from Robbie Ray, a pitcher that has plenty of strikeout upside, a player that can, or a pitcher that can certainly walk too many hitters, as we can see over the past number of seasons, a double-digit walk rate in each of the last 4 seasons. Not this year. We've also seen him give up plenty of home runs, as he's been known to do. Too many walks, too many home runs, 2.17 home runs per 9 this season. A pitcher that is hopefully getting his fly balls under control, along with the hard contact rate being lower than it has been in the past few seasons. The barrel rate is a bit concerning, considering he's not giving up that much hard contact. I don't love attacking the White Sox lineup, but I could certainly make a better case for stacking the White Sox rather than rostering Robbie Ray tonight. The Giants tonight, I think, are interesting. I mentioned them very briefly on the solo shot this morning in regards to Brandon Crawford. I kind of like him as a home run pick tonight because they're going up against Jordan Lyles, who's giving up way too many fly balls this year. We have Jordan Lyles here, 20% strikeout rate this year. So surprisingly, the Giants are a strong offense, and I like some of their players as one-offs tonight for that home run upside. When I see a pitcher like Jordan Lyles, right, we're looking at a pitcher that's clearly giving up home runs, and it's nothing new for him. He's clearly given up plenty of home runs throughout the course of his career. Also a pitcher that doesn't strike out a whole lot of hitters. So this means that he, doesn't have like a dominant, shutdown pitcher. He can get out of innings by himself. So he's letting hitters on base. He's giving up too many home runs. And when we see a 39% fly ball rate and a 40% hard contact rate, we're looking at a 4.55 CR. Like, he's a very, very average to below average MLB pitcher. A positive park shift for the Giants. I think that there's some power upside there. Let's bring up the Giants real quickly, right? We have Jordan Lyles, righty pitcher, switch the teams to San Fran, update this. I mean, this is not the San Francisco team that we have seen over the past few seasons. They are looking good. Brandon Crawford leading the way in this split with a 282 ISO and a 169 WRC plus. Also, his numbers line up against Jordan Lyles, coming in with a 38.6% hard contact rate and a very healthy 42% fly ball rate. So yes, the Giants are a viable stack tonight. Also a team that's probably not going to be extremely popular, where they're 4.52. They're middle of the slate, right? They're just a team in the mix. They're not a top tier team. They're not a team that you're going to find super under the radar. They're a team that's just kind of in the mix. But on the road in Texas, a slight positive park shift. I'll be looking to some of the Giants players tonight. Now, of course, they're dealing with all of these injuries, so you're picking and choosing. But overall, they are very, very affordable. Buster Posey, $3,200. Let's look at some of his stats this season. A 147 WRC plus. He still has plenty of power with a 212 ISO. Already spoke about Brandon Crawford. And then immediately, we're in deep value range. All these players under $2,500. This is a stack that you could really be looking to, for that home run upside in a matchup against Jordan Lyles, who's giving up nearly a 40% fly ball rate and a 40% hard contact rate. And this stack will allow you to pay up for whether it be Shane Bieber, whether it be Tyler Glasnow. You want to go to Walker Buehler for the Dodgers. I think that they're all in play. Who would I look to after those two? Oh, that's a good question. We know that, let's see, Longoria, Belt, LaStella, and Yastrzemski are all out. Wilmer Flores, 108 WRC plus. He's got a 189 ISO this season. That's certainly in play. $2,200. $2,200, only $200 above the minimum salary. You can absolutely be looking there. Steven Dugar at $2,400. Also, plenty of power, plenty of upside at his very affordable $2,400. So you could go to, am I just talking myself more into the Giants? I mean, this morning I said I was moderately interested in them or just interested in Crawford, but Posey, Crawford, Dugar, and Wilmer Flores is a very, very affordable stack tonight. If you roster Posey, Crawford, Flores, and Dugar, you're 4,800 per player remaining. You want to drop in Glasnow in that spot, 3,300. I mean, that's that's looking like a nice tournament lineup. There's plenty of power upside from the Giants in this matchup, and even if they get to the Rangers bullpen, we're not worried about that. Glass now has a 60-point ceiling he could reach to. 7 innings, get the QS, 10 strikeouts, maybe pick up the win, whatever it might be from him. We know he's been able to do that before. And then $3,300 per player remaining. I think that's doable. So very much on board with the Giants. And I guess I'm just talking myself into them, and I'm going to be overexposed to the Giants compared to the field. But we do have the Phillies lineup confirmed. This is a team I spoke about quite a bit this morning. Reds lineup is confirmed 34 seconds ago. What timing? Jonathan India is going to be leading off. That's good to see. Jesse Winker, Nick Castellanos, Joey Votto back in the lineup. Okay, so let's just flip to Cincinnati real quick. Joey Votto is in the lineup tonight, $2,500. He's activated from the IL. Okay. India, Winker, Castellanos, Votto, Suarez. Okay, this is good, and there's some value in the Cincinnati lineup. Again, still worried about the weather here, but this is a spot we can be looking. So if you start off with a Giant stack, you roster one of the top tier pitchers, you still had about, 3,300 left per player. You could go to a red stack pretty comfortably. You want to go with India at 24, you're gaining some savings there. You want to go with Votto at 2,500. Obviously, a player that's dealt with some injuries, struggled earlier in the year, but he still is in a good split against Adrian Hauser. He's only 2,500. And then at that point, paying up for Castellanos or Winker shouldn't be too much of an issue. You might not be able to fit both of them in there, but it'll certainly be a spot I'll be looking for Cincinnati, of course, if the weather holds out. And then the Phillies. This is a team I spoke about at length this morning. This is a team with a 4.95 implied run total. This is a team I'm expecting to be very, very chalky. We got an update, Money Webby, saying Brandon Belt is back. Is that confirmed? Brandon Belt is back. So shout out to Money Webby. Brandon Belt is back in the lineup. So we still have, these are still the Dodgers splits. Brandon Belt, of course, roster him tonight, 292 WRC plus. Let's flip back to San Fran real quick. Brandon Belt, he'll be activated, $2,500. I mean, great call by Money Webby that Belt is back. Great salary on him. Great matchup against Jordan Lyles. So I'll be looking there. But this is what I was talking about this morning. Herrera normally had been batting lower in the lineup for the Phillies, but now he's leading off. $2,900. So looking to a Herrera, Hoskins stack, I think is fine. We're not getting a ton of power upside with Gene Segura, but I love McCutchen tonight for some home run upside. Real Muto is a player that hasn't brought a ton of power this year, but we know what he can do. Bryce Harper, of course, in a lefty-lefty split. Expect him to still be popular. They, run up the score. We could see the Atlanta bullpen in there. DJ Cassier saying, would Ray, Bassett, or Bueller tonight? Let's flip back to pitchers. So it's Wood, Bassett, Ray, or Bueller. Wood, Bassett, Ray, or Bueller. Okay, so we got these three here. That's a great question. So I mentioned it this morning that Walker Buehler, always a pitcher I'm willing to turn to. We know the ceiling that he can bring. Not worried about the Pirates lineup. The Pirates also don't strike out a ton, though, versus righties, which is why I had Buehler a little bit lower than both Glasnow and Shane Bieber. Let's look at the Pirates strikeout rate. So 22.8%. They don't strike out a ton, but an 83 WRC plus is also not a team that I'm really worried about. And a league worst 118 team ISO versus righty. So by no means am I afraid of the Pirates lineup. They just don't strike out a whole lot, combined with the fact that Walker Buehler at times has failed to go super deep into games, limiting his potential upside. So I like Buehler. I just don't know if we can make the exact same case for him compared to Chris Bassett, who's a pitcher in an AL park who has a comparable matchup against Arizona. As I said, they don't strike out a whole lot either. And when we looked at the Diamondbacks compared to the Rockies, they're around league average or worse in a lot of the same stats. But we have Chris Bassett, who's slightly cheaper, and he's at home in an AL park. So the potential for him to go deeper into games is fine. So when I would actually rank them, Bassett, Buehler, Wood, then Ray. Ray just has a tough matchup against Chicago. We do see Alex Wood gaining the DH going to Texas, so that would be a slight boost for him. So if I had to pick any of them, I would go Chris Bassett out of this bunch, but it's just slightly ahead of Walker Buehler. Diffuse is asking, are you going to include Joey Votto into the red stack now that he is confirmed back? Yeah, I'll certainly include Joey Votto. Is he going to be? When it comes to stacking, when it comes to getting exposure to teams, if you're running one lineup, if you're running one lineup, I would say absolutely go with Votto. You could just go top 4. You could go India, Winker, Castellanos, and Votto, because at that point you're getting a nice mix of consistent. I'm going to say consistent, quote unquote, power upside with Castellanos and Winker, who have both been very solid as of late. But then you kind of need a little bit of the salary relief that Jonathan India and Joey Votto bring. So going 1, 2, 3, 4 for the Reds, I think is absolutely perfect. I will be including Votto, but I will also be looking to differentiate my stacks, having multiple red stacks, and then grabbing a few shares of Tucker Barnhart or Eugenio Suarez. So I'll be doing a 2, 3, 5, 6 stack as well. I kind of like that. Mixing in a bit of value here, and then the consistency with Winker and Castellanos. So yes, Votto will be in there for the red stacks. Jason is asking Dickerson with San Francisco. San Fran, flip to let's see if these update. Let's get these updated lineups real quick for San Francisco. Did not update. White Sox, Giants. Dickerson, does he not qualify for 50 plate appearances? At least in this split. I mean, if you're going to the stack, I think that he makes a viable option. It's a lefty-lefty matchup. That's why he probably doesn't qualify. So let's just change the filter, see if we can get his numbers versus lefties. Right here, Dickerson. I mean, yeah, he has power upside. He's obviously not as good as some of the other options that San Francisco is offering tonight, but there's no reason not to take him if you are stacking San Francisco. He's batting, what, second? Yeah, there's no reason not to go to him. Is he my top choice? No, I would be looking to Posey, Bell, Crawford ahead of him. That's just, we're getting more consistency out of those players with the same or better power upside. So I don't think he's a bad option. He's just not my favorite option on San Francisco. It's a righty-lefty matchup for him against Jordan Lyles. I think we're in a really good spot for today's slate. Let's just double check to see if any weather has been updated, because these are very, very important games. So if a late start is going to be likely, postponement potential, this is an issue, right? Because we want, some potential exposure to these teams that are in the game with the highest implied run total. Not just the highest implied run total. It's not just lopsided on one side. The Astros are sitting up at number 1, and the Red Sox are here as the 5th highest team, 4.90. So expect both of these teams to be very popular. The Angels and the Athletics, 2 teams I didn't really touch on too much today. I think that they're both good. I think that they're both in good matchups. I don't necessarily want to go out of my way to overexpose myself to them. I would, rather go to the Phillies a bit more. I would rather take some more shots on the Reds, especially if they're not going to be as popular. Like if we're going to be getting the Reds at a lower rostership percentage compared to the Athletics or the Angels, I'll certainly be looking to them more. Combined with the fact that Cincinnati is just a better hitter's park compared to the game being in Oakland and the game being in LA for the Angels. So I am not worried. I'm not worried about their matchups, but I don't love those hitter's park they're not hitter's parks. I don't love those hitting environments if I don't have to. Jerry's asking, could Baltimore put up the runs they've been putting up in the last couple of games? I think, Baltimore is always a solid GPP team. They're a team that, at face value, everyone's like, oh, Baltimore's not good. I'm not going to roster them. But, we're dealing with baseball. Any team can score 10 plus runs. They are at home, which we know is a good hitter's park in Baltimore, going up against David Peterson for the Mets. Let's look at Peterson's numbers this season. Some decent strikeouts from him, 25.7%. The walks obviously are concerning. That is always interesting. And then, of course, home runs, 1.83. But to some of his peripheral stats, a 26.5% fly ball rate is actually pretty low, but he's giving up a 29% fly ball rate, which means that he's probably giving up too many home runs as of now. That should regress a little bit to 22 or so percent, where we generally see the league average. But, he's mainly a ground ball, medium contact pitcher. He's still giving up a good amount of barrels. The 3.70 xFIP is solid. 4.00 Sierra, it is what it is. I think he's a good pitcher. It's not amazing. It's not terrible. If we look at his splits, he's obviously going to be worse against one or the other. The righties are crushing him this year when it comes to those home runs, and clearly a big differential when it comes to the xFIP. Is it the same with fly balls? I mean, he's pretty even when it comes to the fly balls. The hard contact rate is clearly in favor of the righties. So I don't hate the Orioles as a stack tonight. Where are they? 4.68. Yeah, they're a team that's probably going to go overlooked. I would say in most capacities. If you're looking at this mid tier, you would say, okay, the Reds, they have more home run upside, or they're better offense compared to the Orioles. The Yankees will always be somewhat popular on a given slate, especially if they're going against Michael Pineda, a pitcher that's been known to give up too many fly balls. And then the Twins, they're always going to be somewhat popular. Like, I think the Orioles are actually a really solid GPP team tonight. Them and the Giants, just like this mid-tier is probably going to go largely overlooked. Everyone's going to be looking to pay up for the Astros or the Red Sox if that game does play. If that game doesn't play, I think we're going to be seeing the Dodgers become much more popular. Which, obviously I don't love seeing a team become more chalky due to something that's like kind of random, like weather. It's like a game gets postponed, so all the people that were going to be rostering Houston and Boston are now just going to be rostering the Dodgers. So I certainly don't love that. But Baltimore, yeah, I think I talked myself into Baltimore a little bit more. I think I talked myself too much into the Giants tonight. I'll be overexposed to the Giants against Jordan last night, and then, of course, we'll see how that plays out. So I think that does it for today. We are in a good spot for the slate. We have great pitching options. We have great hitting options. Keep an eye on the weather before today's slate locks. Jim Sonis will be back tomorrow morning for the solo shot at 9 a.m. He will be here for the Q&A tomorrow at 4 p.m. Again, my name is Tom Vecchio. I'm one of the writers and analysts at numberFire.com. You can follow me on Twitter at DFS_Tom. Until next time, good luck in your contests.